hands are 76 years old, and I had made peace with that. Until the night a 31-year-old man looked at me like I was something he desperately needed to understand. I wasn't supposed to be in that hotel bar. I wasn't supposed to be on that trip at all. My daughter had called it reckless, spending what little remained of my retirement fund on a week in Charleston, alone, at my age. But I had done the math differently than she had. I calculated how many springs I had left, how many mornings I'd wake up with my bones still willing to carry me, how many chances remained to feel something other than the quiet weight of being forgotten. So I went. The hotel was old and elegant, the kind of place where the wallpaper whispers about better days. I liked it immediately. It felt honest about its age, unapologetic. The bar was dim, all dark wood and amber light, and I had claimed a corner table with my book and a glass of red wine. I wasn't looking for company. I had learned, over these long years, that solitude was safer than disappointment. But then he walked in. I noticed him the way you notice a sudden change in air pressure before a storm. He was tall, with that careless kind of beauty that young men wear without knowing its value. Dark hair that needed cutting, a white shirt with the sleeves rolled up, exposing forearms marked with tattoos I couldn't quite make out from across the room. He moved like someone who had never questioned whether he belonged anywhere. He sat at the bar, ordered something, and then, God help me, he turned and looked directly at me. Not past me, not through me, at me. I know what you're thinking. I thought it too. He must have been looking at someone else. Something else. The painting on the wall behind me, perhaps. But when I glanced over my shoulder to confirm my suspicion, there was nothing there but aged brocade and shadow. And when I turned back, he was still watching, his head tilted slightly, as if I were a question he was trying to formulate. My first instinct was familiar and well-worn. Embarrassment. My hand went automatically to my neck, to the loose skin there that no amount of expensive cream had ever managed to tighten. I thought of my gray hair, which I'd stopped coloring 3 years ago, in a fit of what my daughter called giving up, but which I had experienced as liberation. I thought of my body beneath this carefully chosen black dress, a body that had nursed children, survived surgeries, carried grief and joy for 76 years, and showed every single minute of it. But he didn't look away. He picked up his drink, whiskey, neat, I would learn later, and walked toward my table. My heart, that old faithful muscle, began to hammer in a way it hadn't since Richard's funeral, though this was an entirely different kind of fear. I hope this doesn't sound insane, he said when he reached me, his voice lower than I expected, rougher. But you have the most devastating face I've ever seen. I actually laughed, not a polite chuckle, but a real, startled bark of laughter that made the couple at the next table turn their heads. That's a new one, I said, closing my book. I've been called many things, but devastating isn't usually on the list anymore. It should be. He gestured to the empty chair across from me. May I? I should have said no. I should have smiled politely and returned to my book, to my wine, to my safe and separate evening. Instead, I heard myself say, "Only if you explain what you mean by devastating." He sat down, and I caught the scent of him. Something clean and woody, with an undertone of cigarette smoke. "You look like you've lived 1,000 lives," he said, studying me with an intensity that made my skin feel too thin. "Like you know things the rest of us are still pretending we'll figure out someday. It's..." He paused, searching for the word. "Humbling. And kind of terrifying. Terrifying." I repeated, tasting the word. I'm 76 years old. The only thing terrifying about me is how early I go to bed. Then why are you in a hotel bar at 9:30 on a Tuesday night, drinking wine alone? The question was direct, almost challenging, and it demanded honesty. I found myself wanting to give it to him. Because I realized I was waiting to die, I said simply. Not in a sad way, just in a practical way. I was arranging my life like it was already over, and one morning I woke up and thought, not yet, not quite yet. Something shifted in his expression then, a softening around his eyes. I'm Daniel, he said, extending his hand across the table. Margaret. His hand was warm and calloused when I took it, his grip firm without being aggressive. And you're far too young to be this interested in the existential crisis of an old woman. I'm 31, he said, and I've spent most of those years feeling absolutely nothing. So when I see someone who makes me feel something, anything, I pay attention. The words landed in my chest like stones thrown into still water, creating ripples I couldn't control. I pulled my hand back, reached for my wine. Anything to break the moment. What are you running from, Daniel? I asked, because people his age who talk like that were always running from something. What makes you think I'm running? Because people who aren't running don't end up in hotel bars in Charleston on Tuesday nights, talking to strange old women about feeling nothing. He smiled then, really smiled, and I saw that he was even younger than I'd thought, or perhaps just more wounded. Fair enough, he said. What are you running toward? I don't know yet, I admitted. That's why I'm here, to find out if there's anything left worth running toward. He lifted his glass. To running then. Whatever direction it takes us. I clinked my wine against his whiskey, and we drank. And something began that I had no name for, no preparation for, no defense against. Something that would remind me, in ways both beautiful and terrible, that wanting doesn't die when your body ages. It just waits, patient and dangerous, for someone brave enough, or foolish enough, to wake it up again. We talked until the bartender began wiping down the counter with increasing purpose, until the other patrons had drifted away like smoke, until my wine glass had been empty for an hour, and I'd forgotten to notice. Daniel told me he worked in something involving technology and venture capital. Words that meant money, but also meant restlessness, meant searching for the next thing, the better thing. The thing that would finally feel like enough. He'd made his first million at 27, and discovered that wealth was just another kind of hunger. He traveled constantly, owned apartments in 3 cities, and couldn't remember the last time he'd slept through the night without pills. I'm so tired, he said at one point, rubbing his face with both hands. Not physically. I mean tired in my bones. Tired of pretending everything matters when nothing seems to stick. I understood that kind of exhaustion. I'd felt it in the years after Richard died, when people kept telling me time would heal, when the days stretched empty and identical, when I'd realized that I could technically survive for decades more in this state of pleasant, pointless continuation. You want to know what I've learned? I said, surprising myself with the urgency in my voice. Nothing sticks because you're not planting anything. You're just skimming the surface, collecting experiences like trading cards. But real life, the kind that sticks, it's messy and repetitive and sometimes boring as hell. It's doing the same small things with the same people, until those things become sacred simply because you kept choosing them. He looked at me like I'd just revealed the answer to a question he'd been asking his whole life. Tell me more, he said. Tell me everything. So I did. I told him about my marriage. 43 years with a good man who drove me crazy, at least once a week. I told him about my children, about the way motherhood had simultaneously completed me and erased me, about learning to find myself again in the spaces between everyone else's needs. I told him about my grandson, Michael, who was exactly Daniel's age and working in Seattle doing something with algorithms I would never fully understand. "Does it bother you?" he asked. "That I'm his age?" "Yes," I said honestly. "It should bother me more than it does." "But it doesn't." I met his eyes. Those dark eyes that kept looking at me like I mattered, like I was worth this attention. "No," I admitted. "And that's what frightens me." "What frightens you about it?" How could I explain? How could I tell him that I was afraid of wanting something I couldn't have, shouldn't have, had no right to even imagine? How could I admit that sitting across from him made me feel more alive than I had in a decade? And that feeling came with a price I didn't know if I could afford to pay. "Everything," I finally said. "Everything about this frightens me." "Good," he said, and there was something fierce in his voice. "Fear means it matters." The bartender cleared his throat meaningfully, and we both startled, looking around to realize we were the last people in the bar. Daniel paid the bill, waving away my attempt to contribute, and we walked out into the hotel lobby together. The silence between us felt alive, charged with possibilities neither of us was brave enough to name. I knew I should say goodnight, should thank him for the conversation, should go upstairs to my safe single room, and my book, and my careful, contained life. "I'm here all week," Daniel said, hands in his pockets, looking almost shy. "Tomorrow night? Same time?" Every reasonable part of me screamed no. Every reasonable part of me knew this was foolish, dangerous, a setup for humiliation or heartbreak or both. I thought of my daughter's voice on the phone, warning me about strangers, about men with bad intentions, about all the ways the world could hurt an old woman traveling alone. But I also thought about that morning when I decided not to wait for death anymore. I thought about the way his attention made me feel visible again, real again, like a person, instead of just a remnant. "Same time," I heard myself say. His smile was like sunrise. "Good night, Margaret." "Good night, Daniel." I rode the elevator to the 4th floor with my heart pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. Inside my room, I caught sight of myself in the mirror. My lipstick worn off, my hair slightly mussed, my eyes brighter than they'd been in years. And I barely recognized the woman looking back at me. She looked dangerous. She looked awake. I thought about texting my daughter. But what would I say? That I'd spent 3 hours talking to a man young enough to be her nephew? That I was seeing him again tomorrow? That somewhere in those 3 hours something had shifted in me. Some frozen thing had cracked and started moving again. Instead, I got ready for bed slowly, carefully, still feeling the weight of his attention on my skin like phantom hands. I lay in the unfamiliar bed, in the unfamiliar city, and stared at the ceiling for hours. I knew what this was, or what it should be. An interesting evening. A pleasant conversation with a lonely young man who probably flattered older women regularly, who probably liked the ego boost of making them feel seen. Tomorrow night he might not even show up, or he would, and I'd see clearly that this was nothing, just a brief intersection of two people with time to kill. But my body wasn't listening to my mind's reasonable explanations. My body was humming with something I hadn't felt since Ronald Reagan was president. My skin felt too sensitive, my nerves too close to the surface. When I finally touched myself under the covers, yes, I did. And I'm not ashamed to admit it. I came with a violence that shocked me, biting down on my own hand to keep from crying out. Afterward, I lay there trembling, tears running down my temples into my hair. Not sure if I was crying from release or grief or fear, or all three at once. I was 76 years old. I had buried a husband. I had raised children. I had survived cancer and menopause, and the slow, grinding diminishment of being told, in 1,000 small ways, that my wanting no longer mattered. And here I was, wet and gasping in a hotel bed, brought to this state by nothing more than 3 hours of conversation with a beautiful young man who had looked at me like I was devastating. "Oh, Margaret," I whispered to myself in the darkness, "what have you started?" The hotel's air conditioning clicked on, rattling softly in the silence. "Somewhere down the hall," someone's television murmured. Outside my window, Charleston breathed in its sleep, old and elegant and used to keeping secrets. And I lay there, awake and alive and absolutely terrified, counting the hours until 9:30 the next evening, when I would walk down to that bar and discover whether I'd imagined the whole thing, or whether something impossible had actually begun. Because here's what nobody tells you about being old. The wanting doesn't stop. It just gets quieter, easier to ignore, more socially acceptable to pretend doesn't exist, until someone sees it, until someone looks at you and acknowledges that you're still a woman with hunger, still a creature with desires, still capable of making someone's breath catch and their pupils dilate. And then, God help you, you remember what you really are. Not safe, not finished, not grateful to simply still be here. Dangerous. He was already there when I arrived, sitting at the same bar stool, wearing jeans and a dark shirt that made him look both younger and more serious. When he saw me, his whole face changed. Not just a smile, but a transformation, like I'd brought light into the room. "I was afraid you wouldn't come," he said, standing as I approached. "I was afraid I would," I replied. And he laughed, that low, rough sound that did things to my insides. I had no business feeling. We didn't sit in the bar this time. He asked if I'd eaten, and when I said no, he suggested we walk to a restaurant he'd found that afternoon. The Charleston evening was warm and thick with the smell of jasmine and salt water. Our hands brushed twice as we walked, accidental touches that felt anything but accidental. The restaurant was small and dim, with candles on every table, and jazz playing softly from invisible speakers. He ordered wine without asking if I wanted any, somehow knowing exactly what I'd like. The waiter clearly assumed we were related, maybe grandmother and grandson, out for a nice family dinner. And I saw Daniel notice the assumption, saw something flicker across his face that might have been amusement or defiance or both. "Tell me about your husband," he said after we'd ordered. It surprised me. Most men, especially young ones, avoided dead husbands like landmines. "Why?" "Because he shaped you, because he got 43 years of you, and I want to understand what that was." So I told him about Richard, about how we'd met at a church social in 1965, how he'd been steady and kind and almost boring in the best possible way, how he'd worked the same job for 37 years, come home every evening at 5:45, kissed me hello in exactly the same spot in the kitchen, how I'd sometimes wanted to scream from the predictability of it all, and how after he died, I'd have given anything for just one more predictable evening. "Did you love him?" Daniel asked. "Yes," I said. "Not the way movies tell you to love someone, not with constant passion and drama, but with something deeper, with choice. Every day I chose him, and he chose me, and that choosing became its own kind of poetry. Do you miss him? Every day, I said honestly. But also, and this is the part that makes me feel guilty, I'm grateful for the space his absence created. For the first time in 50 years, I get to just be Margaret. Not wife, not mother, not grandmother, just me. And who is that? He asked, leaning forward. Who's Margaret when nobody's watching? The question felt dangerous, intimate in a way that had nothing to do with bodies. I don't know yet, I admitted. I'm still figuring that out. Maybe I can help. By doing what? By watching. By paying attention. By seeing things about you that you might have forgotten. My throat tightened. Why? I whispered. Why do you care? He was quiet for a long moment, turning his wine glass in slow circles on the table. Because when I look at you, I don't feel numb, he finally said. Because you talk to me like I'm a real person, not a bank account or a networking opportunity. Because you've lived long enough to be honest, and that honesty is the sexiest thing I've ever encountered. Sexy. I repeated the word, feeling foreign in my mouth when applied to myself. Incredibly. His eyes held mine, and I couldn't look away. You have no idea, do you? How magnetic you are. How much presence you have. I'm 76 years old, Daniel. I know. And you wear it like armor. Like proof that you've survived things that would have destroyed weaker people. It's extraordinary. I felt heat rise up my neck, into my face. Not the heat of embarrassment, but something else. Something that felt like being seen for the first time in decades. Really seen. Not as a category or a demographic, but as a specific, particular woman. Our food came, and we ate slowly, talking about everything and nothing. He told me about his childhood in Boston, about a father who'd expected him to become a doctor, and a mother who died when he was 12. I told him about growing up poor in rural Virginia, about learning to make $1 stretch across a week, about the first time I'd flown on an airplane at age 34, and how terrified and thrilled I'd been. We were the last ones in the restaurant. Again. The waiter brought the check with slightly less patience than the night before. Outside, the street was empty and beautiful, lit by old-fashioned lamps that cast pools of golden light. We walked slowly back toward the hotel, and this time, when our hands brushed, Daniel caught mine and held it. I should have pulled away. I should have made a joke, lightened the moment, re-established the boundaries that made sense. Instead, I threaded my fingers through his and felt my entire body respond to that simple contact. Margaret, he said, stopping in the middle of the sidewalk, turning to face me. I need to tell you something. My heart hammered. What? I haven't been able to think about anything but you for the past 24 hours. And I know this is crazy. I know there's no world where this makes sense. But I don't care about sense right now. What do you care about? I asked, barely breathing. This, he said, and kissed me. His lips were soft and sure, one hand coming up to cup my face with a gentleness that made me want to weep. It wasn't a passionate kiss, not hungry or demanding. It was a question, an invitation, a door being opened to a room I'd thought was locked forever. When he pulled back, I was shaking. Come upstairs with me, he whispered. And God help me. I nodded yes. The elevator ride felt eternal. We didn't speak, didn't touch, just stood side by side watching the numbers climb. 10th floor, 15th, 19th. My reflection in the polished brass doors showed a woman I barely recognized. Flushed, eyes bright, chest rising and falling too quickly. His suite was on the 19th floor, much larger than my modest room. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the city, and there was a bottle of champagne already waiting in an ice bucket, sweating condensation in the lamplight. "I ordered it this afternoon," he admitted, looking almost shy. I didn't know if you'd..." He stopped, laughed at himself. "I'm not usually this nervous." "Neither am I said, and we both knew what I meant. "I'm not usually doing this. I'm not usually the woman who goes to a man's hotel room. I'm not usually brave or foolish enough for this kind of wanting." He opened the champagne, and the pop of the cork made me jump. He poured 2 glasses, handed me one, and we stood there awkwardly for a moment. 2 people on the edge of something neither of us could take back. "We don't have to do anything," he said quietly. "We can just talk. We can just drink champagne and talk until morning if that's what you want." "What do you want?" I asked. "Everything," he said simply. "But only if you do." I set down my champagne glass with a shaking hand. "I need you to understand something," I said. "This body isn't what it was. I have scars. I have skin that's loose and marked and old. I have..." "Stop," he interrupted gently. He crossed the space between us, took both my hands in his. "I don't want what you were. I want what you are. Right now. This version of you with all the evidence of everything you've survived. Do you understand?" I didn't. Not really, but I nodded anyway. He kissed me again, slower this time, deeper. His hands moved to the zipper at the back of my dress, and he paused, waiting for permission. I breathed yes against his mouth, and he drew the zipper down with agonizing slowness. The dress fell away, and I stood before him in my sensible undergarments. Not the lacy things of youth, but the practical cotton and elastic of a woman who'd long ago stopped expecting to be seen. I fought the urge to cover myself with my arms. Daniel stepped back, not to retreat, but to look. Really look. His eyes traveled over me, my sagging breasts, my rounded belly, my thighs marked with veins and age spots, the cesarean scar that ran across my lower abdomen like a crooked smile. "Beautiful," he murmured, and impossibly, he meant it. He reached out, traced the cesarean scar with one finger. "Who did you carry?" "My son, Thomas. He was 9 pounds, 4 ounces, and stubborn from the moment they cut him out of me." Daniel smiled, then leaned down and kissed the scar, then the stretch marks on my sides, then the age spots on my shoulders. He kissed me like I was a map he was memorizing, like every mark was a landmark worth honoring. When he finally laid me down on the bed, I was crying. Not from sadness, but from the overwhelming shock of being wanted like this, being treasured like this, being seen so completely, and not found lacking. "Tell me if anything's too much," he whispered, settling beside me. "Tell me if you want to stop." But I didn't want to stop. I wanted to be reclaimed. I wanted to remember what it felt like to be touched with intention, with desire, with the kind of attention that makes you feel like you matter. We moved together slowly, carefully. My body responded in ways I'd forgotten it could. Heat spreading through my limbs, breath catching. That delicious building tension that I'd thought was lost to menopause and age. He was patient, attentive, guiding me with hands that seemed to know exactly what I needed. When I finally opened my legs to him, let him settle between my thighs, there was a moment of perfect stillness. We locked eyes, and in that moment I wasn't old, and he wasn't young. We were just 2 people choosing to be vulnerable with each other, choosing to exchange this most intimate gift. "Stay with me," he whispered as he entered me. "Don't leave. Stay right here." And I did. I stayed present, stayed embodied, stayed awake to every sensation. The stretch and pressure, the rhythm we found together, the way my body remembered this ancient dance even though it had been years. I touched his face, his hair, his shoulders, committing the reality of him to memory. When he kissed me as we moved together, I tasted salt, my tears or his sweat. I couldn't tell. It didn't matter. What mattered was this: being held, being wanted, being reminded that my body was still capable of giving and receiving pleasure. I didn't climax. My body doesn't work that way anymore. Not easily. Not predictably. But what I felt was somehow deeper than orgasm. A full-body sensation of being alive, being here, being enough exactly as I was. Afterward, we lay tangled together, his head on my breast, my fingers in his hair. The champagne sat forgotten on the dresser. The city lights glittered through the window, and I felt, for the first time in years, gloriously, devastatingly real. "Thank you," I whispered into the darkness. "For what?" "For reminding me I'm still here, that I still exist, that I still matter." He raised his head, looked at me with those dark eyes that saw too much. "Margaret, you're the most real person I've ever met. Don't you know that?" I didn't, but lying there in his arms, in that expensive hotel room, in that impossible moment, I almost believed him. I woke to sunlight streaming through unfamiliar windows and the weight of Daniel's arm across my waist. For a moment, I didn't remember where I was. Then it all came rushing back. The champagne, the kissing, the way he'd looked at my 76-year-old body like it was something precious. In the harsh morning light, reality felt different, sharper, less forgiving. I carefully extracted myself from his embrace and sat on the edge of the bed, my back to him. My dress was pooled on the floor like evidence. My shoes lay scattered by the door. The champagne bottle stood empty on the dresser, a witness to my foolishness. What had I done? My daughter's voice echoed in my head. All the warnings she'd given me before this trip. About being careful. About not trusting strangers. About remembering my age and my place in the world. And here I was, naked in a young man's hotel room, my body still tender from being touched in ways I'd forgotten were possible. I caught sight of myself in the mirror across the room and had to look away. In the unforgiving daylight, I saw exactly what I was. An old woman who'd let herself be seduced by attention and champagne and the desperate desire to feel young again, even for a night. "Hey," Daniel's sleepy voice came from behind me. "You okay?" I grabbed the sheet to cover myself, suddenly modest in a way I hadn't been the night before. "I should go," I said, not turning around. I heard him sit up, felt the bed shift. "Margaret, look at me. I can't." "Why not?" "Because in the morning light, this all feels like a mistake. Because I'm embarrassed. Because I'm 76 years old. And last night I forgot that. And now I'm remembering with the force of a slap. I just need to go," I said, standing up, clutching the sheet around me as I reached for my dress. "Don't do this." His voice was quiet but firm. "Don't run away. Don't make last night smaller than it was." "It was one night," I said, my back still to him. "It was nice, but it was one night. Let's not pretend it was more than that. Nice." He laughed, but there was no humor in it. "That's what you're going to call it? Nice?" I finally turned to face him. He was sitting up in bed, the sheet pulled around his waist, his hair sticking up in every direction. He looked hurt and young and beautiful, and seeing him like that made my chest ache. "What do you want me to say, Daniel? That it was magical? That it meant something? I'm old enough to be your grandmother. This..." I gestured between us. This can't be anything real. Why not? Because. The word came out sharper than I intended. Because people will think you're my caretaker. Because I have grandchildren your age. Because in 10 years I'll be 86 and you'll be 41 and still in your prime. And what then? You think you'll still want to touch this body when it's even older, even more broken down? You don't get to decide what I want, he said, his voice rising. You don't get to tell me what I feel. I'm trying to protect you. From what? From caring about someone? From feeling something real for once in my goddamn life? The words hung between us, raw and painful. I sank back down onto the edge of the bed, suddenly exhausted. This scares me, I whispered. You scare me. Why? Because I want this. I want you. And wanting anything at my age feels dangerous. It feels like setting myself up for loss and humiliation and heartbreak. He moved closer, kneeling behind me on the bed, his hands gentle on my shoulders. What if you just let yourself have it? Just for this week? No promises, no expectations. Just this. And then what? I go home and pretend this never happened? Or you go home and remember that you're still alive, that you're still capable of feeling, that you're still devastating. I laughed, a wet sound that was half sob. I'm not devastating, Daniel. I'm just old and lonely, and desperate enough to believe a beautiful young man when he tells me I am. His hands tightened on my shoulders. Stop it. Stop diminishing yourself. Stop deciding for both of us that this doesn't matter. You'll regret it, I said. Eventually, you'll look back on this and cringe. You'll tell the story at parties. Remember that weird week when I slept with a woman old enough to be my grandmother? Or maybe, he said, moving around to face me, kneeling on the floor in front of me, taking my face in his hands. Maybe I'll remember the week I met the most honest, brave, fascinating woman I've ever known. Maybe I'll be grateful for every single minute. I wanted to believe him. God, I wanted to believe him so badly. But I'd lived too long, seen too much, survived too many disappointments to trust this kind of hope. I need to think, I said finally. I need some time alone to think. He studied my face for a long moment, then nodded. Okay, but Margaret, last night wasn't a mistake, and you're not foolish for wanting to be wanted. You're human, and that's not something to be ashamed of. I dressed quickly, not gracefully, my hands shaking as I pulled on yesterday's clothes. He watched me the whole time, and I felt his gaze like a physical touch. At the door, I paused. Daniel, I'll be in the bar tonight, he said. 9:30. If you want to see me again, I'll be there. If you don't come, I'll understand. I nodded, not trusting my voice, and fled into the hallway. The door clicked shut behind me with a sound like finality. In my own room, I sat on the bed and stared at nothing. My body felt used and tender and strangely alive. My mind raced with recriminations and justifications and what-ifs. What had I done? What was I doing? And most terrifying of all, what did I want to do next? I spent the day walking, miles and miles through Charleston's historic streets, past churches and gardens and houses that had witnessed centuries of secrets. I walked until my feet ached, until my thoughts exhausted themselves, until I couldn't run anymore from the decision I had to make. At 4 o'clock, my phone rang. My daughter's name lit up the screen, and my stomach dropped. Hi, sweetie, I answered, trying to sound normal. Mom, I've been worried about you. You haven't called in 2 days. I'm sorry. I've been busy. Sightseeing. Alone? Her voice carried that edge of concern that always made me feel simultaneously cared for And infantilized. Yes, alone. I'm perfectly capable. I know. I just worry. You're not as young as you used to be. There it was. The reminder. The gentle insistence that I acknowledge my limitations, accept my diminishment, be grateful for what I still had instead of reaching for more. How are the kids? I asked, changing the subject. She launched into updates about my grandchildren, Jessica's college applications, Michael's new job, little Emma's dance recital. I listened and made appropriate noises, but my mind kept drifting back to Daniel's suite, to the way he'd touched me, to the question waiting for me at 9:30. Mom, are you listening? Of course. Sorry. What did you say? I said Michael's coming to visit next month. He's really excited to see you. You two can compare notes about being single. My throat tightened. Michael, my grandson, 31 years old, exactly Daniel's age. I thought about introducing them, about watching my daughter's face when she realized what I'd done, who I'd been with. The shame hit me like a wave. Mom, you still there? I'm here, that's wonderful. I can't wait to see him. Are you okay? You sound strange. I'm fine, just tired from walking all day. You're not overdoing it, are you? Remember what the doctor said about your knees. My knees are fine, Sarah. I'm just saying, at your age. I have to go, I interrupted, unable to bear another reminder of my age, my limitations, my proper place. There's someone at the door. Oh, okay. Well, call me tomorrow. I love you. Love you too. I ended the call and sat heavily on the bed, phone clutched in my hand. At your age. At your age. At your age. The words echoed like a prison sentence. What was I thinking? That I could have this? That I could want something beyond quiet evenings and doctor's appointments and waiting for grandchildren to visit? That I deserved to feel alive, desired, seen as a woman instead of just someone's mother, someone's grandmother, someone's burden. I pulled up my photos, scrolled until I found one from Thanksgiving. Me surrounded by family. Sarah and her husband, my 3 grandchildren, my son Thomas and his family. I looked happy in the photo, content, like someone who had everything she needed. But I also looked invisible, like I was there to serve, to facilitate, to witness their lives, while mine quietly ended. I thought about Daniel's face that morning when I'd tried to leave. The hurt in his eyes, the way he'd called me brave and honest and fascinating. No one had called me fascinating in 40 years. No one had looked at me like I was still becoming something, instead of just declining. My phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. I know you're scared. I'm scared too. But courage isn't the absence of fear. It's doing the thing anyway. 9:30. I'll wait. I stared at the message for a long time. He'd gotten my number from... where? The hotel? Had he asked at the front desk? The thought should have bothered me. But instead it felt like proof. He'd sought me out. He'd taken action. He wasn't just being polite or amusing himself. He wanted this. But what did I want? I stood up, walked to the mirror, forced myself to really look. Gray hair, deep lines around my eyes and mouth, skin that sagged no matter how much moisturizer I used. A body that had carried children, nursed them, survived cancer, buried a husband. A body that showed every single year I'd lived. But also, and this was harder to see, harder to acknowledge, a body that could still feel, could still respond, could still bring pleasure and experience it, even if differently than before. I'd spent so long thinking of my body as something failing, something declining. something to be managed and maintained. But last night, Daniel had touched me like I was treasure. Like these marks of age were evidence of victory, not defeat. What if he was right? What if I was still here, still real, still worthy of wanting and being wanted? The clock on the nightstand read 7:15. 2 hours and 15 minutes until 9:30. I took a shower, washed my hair, took extra care with my makeup. I chose a different dress, deep blue, with sleeves that covered my arms, but a neckline that showed I still had a décolletage worth displaying. I put on perfume, real perfume, the expensive bottle I'd been saving for a special occasion. At 8:45, I stood at my door, hand on the knob, heart pounding so hard I could feel it in my throat. I could stay here, order room service, call Sarah back, be the person everyone expected me to be, safe, sensible, settled into the quiet diminishment of old age. Or I could walk down to that bar. I could choose aliveness over safety. I could be devastating one more time, even if it was foolish, even if it ended badly, even if the whole world thought I was crazy. I thought about what I'd told Daniel that first night, that I'd realized I was waiting to die, that I'd come on this trip to find out if there was anything left worth running toward. Well, here was my answer. I opened the door and stepped into the hallway. My hands were shaking. My heart was racing. Everything in me screamed that this was ridiculous, that I was too old for this, that I should know better. But I kept walking, past the elevator, past the ice machine, past all the safe choices. Because here's what I'd learned in 76 years. Regret tastes worse than failure. And I'd rather be foolish and alive than sensible and dead inside. The elevator doors opened. I stepped in and pressed the button for the lobby. 9:30. I was going to be devastating one more time. And if that made me foolish, well, at least I'd be a fool who still knew how to want. He was there, exactly where he'd promised to be. Same bar stool, same dark shirt. But this time his shoulders were tense, his whole body coiled with anticipation or dread. When he saw me walk in, the relief that flooded his face was so naked, so honest, that I had to stop and breathe. "You came," he said, standing. I almost didn't. "But you did." He crossed to me, and without hesitation, without looking around to see who was watching, he took both my hands in his and kissed them. "Thank you." We didn't sit at the bar. We walked out into the garden behind the hotel, where fairy lights were strung between palmetto trees, and the night air smelled like Confederate jasmine. We found a bench tucked away in a corner, private and quiet. "I need to tell you something," I said once we'd sat down, "and I need you to really hear it." "Okay." "I'm terrified, not just of this," I gestured between us, "but of everything this represents. I'm terrified of wanting you. I'm terrified of what people will think. I'm terrified that you'll wake up one day and realize you've wasted your youth on an old woman. I'm terrified that I'm being selfish and foolish and... Margaret." He took my face in his hands, gentle but firm. "I need you to hear something too. I'm 31 years old. I'm not a child. I'm not confused. And I'm not wasting anything. Do you understand?" "But, no. Listen to me. I have dated women my own age. I have slept with women society says I'm supposed to want. And you know what? I felt nothing. Nothing. It was like going through motions, checking boxes, pretending to be alive. But you," his voice cracked slightly, "when I'm with you, I feel everything. You make me want to be honest. You make me want to be brave. You make me remember why any of this matters. Tears were running down my face, and I didn't try to stop them. "I can't give you forever," I whispered. "I can't even give you very long. In the grand scheme of things, I don't have much time left. None of us do," he said. "That's the whole point. Nobody gets forever. We get now. And right now, I want to be with you. Not in spite of your age, not because of some fetish or complex, but because you're the most real thing I've encountered in my entire life." "This weekend's in 3 days," I said. "Then what?" "I don't know. Maybe nothing. Maybe we go our separate ways and remember this as a beautiful, impossible week. Or maybe..." He paused, seemed to gather courage. "Maybe we figure out how to keep choosing this. Keep choosing each other. People will judge us. Let them. My daughter will be horrified. She'll get over it. Or she won't. But that's not a good enough reason to deny yourself happiness." "My grandson is your age, Daniel. My grandson." "I know. And I'm not dating your grandson. I'm dating you, Margaret. This specific, particular, devastating woman who walked into a bar 3 nights ago and changed everything." The word dating hung in the air between us, loaded with implications neither of us had dared speak aloud until now. "Is that what this is?" I asked. "Dating." "It's whatever you want it to be. But yes, if you'll have me, I'd like to date you. I'd like to take you to dinner and call you and text you good morning and..." He smiled slightly. "And scandalize everyone who thinks they get a say in who we're allowed to care about." I laughed, a wet, broken sound. "You're insane." "Probably. But I'd rather be insane and alive than numb and safe." I thought about my life back home, the quiet routines, the weekly calls with Sarah, the book club where we all pretended to have read the books, the doctor's appointments and the early bird dinners and the slow, dignified slide into irrelevance. And I thought about how I'd felt the past 3 nights. Awake, electric, seen. "I don't know how this works," I admitted. "I don't know how to do this at my age." "Good," he said. "Neither do I. We'll figure it out together." "What if I get sick? What if my body fails more than it already has? What if..." "Then we'll deal with it. Together." "Margaret, you keep trying to protect me from the future. But the future is uncertain for everyone. You could get sick. I could get sick. The world could end tomorrow. None of us know. So why not choose happiness now, while we can?" He had a point. A terrifying, undeniable point. "Okay," I heard myself say. "Okay? Okay, let's try this. Let's be insane together. But Daniel..." I gripped his hands tighter. "If you change your mind, if you wake up one day and realize this isn't what you want, you have to promise me you'll say so. Don't stay out of pity or guilt or some misguided sense of obligation." "I promise. Same goes for you." "Deal." We sat there for a long moment, hands clasped, looking at each other in the fairy light glow. Then he leaned in and kissed me, slow and deep, and I kissed him back, choosing this, choosing him, choosing aliveness over safety. When we pulled apart, he smiled. "So, what do people who are dating do?" "I have no idea," I said. "It's been 50 years since I dated anyone." "Well, I hear dinner is traditional." "We've had dinner. Then let's skip tradition. What do you want to do right now, Margaret? Right this minute?" I thought about it. Really thought about it. What did I want? "I want to dance," I said. "I haven't danced in years. I want to dance with you." He stood, held out his hand. "Then let's dance." There was no music in the garden, but he pulled out his phone, found something slow and jazzy, and we swayed together under the palmetto trees and fairy lights. My head on his chest, his arms around me, moving in small circles like we had all the time in the world. And for that moment, we did. I woke in his bed again. But this time, there was no panic, just the steady rhythm of his breathing beside me, the weight of his arm, the morning light painting everything gold. My flight home was in 6 hours. I slipped out carefully, found my phone, and saw 3 missed calls from Sarah. My stomach clenched, but I didn't call back. Not yet. First, I needed to understand what I was going back to, what I was taking with me. Daniel stirred, reached for me, eyes still closed. Don't go. I have to. My flight. I know. He opened his eyes and they were clear despite the early hour. Come back to bed. Just for a minute. I did. And he pulled me close, his body warm against mine. We lay there in silence, and I thought about how 4 days ago, I'd been a woman who thought she was done with wanting, done with surprises, done with the messy, terrifying business of being alive. I'm scared, I admitted into the quiet. Me too. What if we get home and this all seems like a dream? What if reality makes it impossible? Then we'll deal with reality. But Margaret... He propped himself up on one elbow, looked down at me with those dark, serious eyes. I'm not letting you disappear. Not if you don't want to. I don't want to, I whispered, and saying it out loud felt like jumping off a cliff. Good. Then we figure it out. I'll come to you. You'll come to me. We'll FaceTime and text and make it work however we can make it work. People will talk. Let them talk. My daughter will love you no matter what. And if she can't accept this, that's her problem to work through, not yours. I wanted to argue, to list all the reasons this couldn't work, wouldn't work, was doomed from the start. But I was tired of being sensible. I was tired of living small. I was tired of letting other people's comfort dictate my choices. Okay, I said. Okay, let's be brave. We made love one more time, slow and deliberate, memorizing each other. And this time, when he touched me, I didn't think about my age or my scars or my sagging skin. I just felt. I just received. I just was. Afterward, I showered and dressed in my own clothes, packed my small suitcase. He made coffee, and we sat by the window overlooking Charleston, drinking it in silence that felt comfortable rather than awkward. I'll call you tonight, he said, after you land. I'll answer. And next weekend, I'll come to you. I want to see where you live. I want to meet your friends. I want to be part of your real life, not just this vacation bubble. The thought terrified me and thrilled me in equal measure. Okay. At the airport, he insisted on coming inside with me, and we stood at the security checkpoint like any other couple saying goodbye. He kissed me thoroughly, not caring who saw, and when we pulled apart, I saw an older woman watching us with narrowed eyes, her expression somewhere between shocked and disgusted. I met her gaze and smiled. Let her judge. Let her whisper. Let her think whatever she wanted. I knew what this was. I knew what I'd chosen. Go, Daniel said, touching my face one last time, before I try to kidnap you. I'm going. But I didn't move. Margaret, thank you, I said, for seeing me, for reminding me I'm still here. You were always here, he said. I just had the privilege of noticing. I kissed him once more, then forced myself to turn and walk through security. I looked back once and saw him still standing there, hands in his pockets, watching me go. On the plane, I finally called Sarah back. Mom, I've been so worried. Where have you been? I've been busy, I said, and I couldn't keep the smile out of my voice. Busy doing what? You sound different. I met someone. Silence. Then carefully. Someone? A man. His name is Daniel. He's 31 years old. And before you say anything, I know what you're thinking. I know how it looks. I know it doesn't make sense, but... Sarah... My voice cracked. I'm happy. For the first time in years, I'm genuinely happy. More silence. Then, Mom, are you sure this is a good idea? I mean, 31? He's younger than Michael. What could he possibly want with a 76-year-old woman? I finished for her. I don't know. But whatever it is, it's real. And I'm not going to apologize for it. I'm just worried about you getting hurt. I know. But Sarah, I'd rather risk being hurt than spend the rest of my life playing it safe. I've done safe. I've done sensible. And it was slowly killing me. I heard her sigh. That long-suffering sound that mothers perfect and daughters inherit. Will I get to meet him? He's coming next weekend. Next weekend? Mom, this is moving really fast. At my age, everything moves fast. I don't have time to waste on slow. She laughed then, despite herself. Okay. Bring him over for dinner. Let me see this man who's got my mother acting like a teenager. Thank you. I'm not saying I approve. I'm saying I love you. There's a difference. I'll take it. After we hung up, I sat back in my seat and looked out at the clouds below. My phone buzzed. A text from Daniel. Missing you already. Fair warning. I'm going to be the most annoying texter you've ever met. Hope you're ready. I smiled and typed back, bring it on. I'm ready for everything. And I was. I was ready for the judgment, and the whispers, and the shocked faces. I was ready for the complications, and the challenges, and the uncertain future. I was ready to be foolish, and brave, and devastatingly alive. Because here's what I'd learned on that impossible trip to Charleston. You're never too old to choose yourself. You're never too old to want. You're never too old to be seen and desired and cherished exactly as you are. At 76 years old, I hadn't found love. I'd found something better. I'd found proof that I still existed, that I still mattered, that I was still capable of making someone's breath catch and their heart race. And that, my darlings, is power. The kind of power that doesn't fade with age or diminish with time. The kind of power that comes from knowing, absolutely knowing, that you are still here, still vital, still devastating. Nobody can take that from you. Not the mirror, not the calendar, not the world's narrow ideas about who gets to want and be wanted. I am 76 years old, and I am just getting started.